Welcome in, everyone, to Football Friday, presented by Football Addicts Anonymous. As always, I have Chris Cherry with me. No one else come
Let's
on.
go.
Got the military background. Can't see my thumb. Yeah, there it is. Got the military background for Memorial Day this weekend. Appreciate everyone that has served and continues to serve. Especially our boy Mark. Wish he was coming on, but he's doing life. So, anyways, good amount of stuff going on this week. Had NFL owners meeting. I didn't even hear when that was. I just saw updates on Twitter that the owners approved such and such.
I had no idea it was even going on, and I just, like you said, I just saw all these random notifications about the stuff that they went over.
Yeah, so got some of that stuff going on, and we will finish up the show today with our second to last draft review. We're doing the NFC East today. Got my Zach Ertz jersey on, my Eagles Super Bowl hat. So let's get it going here. Starting off, 30 of the 32 teams are cleared for full capacity stadiums this fall, starting in the preseason. The only two that aren't right now are the Broncos and the Colts. I don't really know why those are the two. Just local restrictions still, I guess.
Yeah, I was trying to think about it too when I was looking over the script and stuff. Indy maybe because it's indoor, isn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe that has something to do with it, but Denver, that's an outdoor stadium, so it must be some sort of state restriction still for them.
Yeah. I don't know. I was very surprised that Pennsylvania, the Eagles and Steelers were not the two. How stringent Pennsylvania was, and California as well. So, but training camps will have fans as well this year. Training camp starts around July 31st this year with only 3 preseason games. So, and speaking of training camp, the owners, they approved training camp rosters to be set at 90 once again. Last year with COVID, we went in with a lot of teams going 80 or less. I know 80 was the max that you could have. So, that's 320 more players getting an opportunity to showcase what they can do for teams. So definitely good. Give those guys the opportunity to make a roster. Cut down. Do you have something?
Well, I was just gonna say, I don't know. I feel like 90 is a very large amount of players to be watching at one time. I mean, I know there's a ton of people on the coaching staff that could watch different players and stuff, but the people that actually have to make the decisions, I feel like it's going to be hard to look at 90 people at once. And the fact that there's not a lot of chances, as we'll go over in a second, I don't know. 90 seems like a huge roster size, and then the quick cut downs that we have here.
Yeah, I mean, well, you got to account for injuries. And also, when it comes to cutting, I think, the positional coaches and the assistant position coaches, those are the guys the head coach will go to, like, all right, we're keeping this many of this position. Which guys are in? At least that's how I would do it as a head coach. It's very simplistic, but I think it makes for a good way. Until you get down to the final cut, and then you're like, then you have to cross position it, and you only have this many spots left. All right, are we going to take this D end or this D tackle? this, offensive tackle, or we're going to take this wide receiver. So, but yeah, the cut dates, they're going to cut to 85. All three cut dates are after each preseason game. So it's going to be August 17th is down to 85. August 24th is down to 80. And then the big one, August 31st, is down to 53, which I think they said was like 4 days earlier than usual or something like that. I'd have to look at the calendar. Yeah, so August 31st is, wow, that's kind of crazy because the season doesn't start until the 9th. Yeah, so that's a whole week and 2 days. 9 days before the season starts. That's
I mean, this whole thing is kind of an experiment of sorts because this is the first time that they're doing 3 preseason games, and this is the first time that they're doing all that kind of stuff with the 90 rosters, trying to cut it down like that. So we'll see how it goes this year. But I mean, last year they didn't even have a preseason, right? So
yeah.
I mean, they got through that one fine. So we'll see how it goes with now having 3 preseason games. But I'm just curious how the playing time is going to end up being in the preseason. Like, are the players that are essentially locked to be on the team, are they going to play at all in the preseason, you think?
I think they will. I mean, that first preseason game, I think you'll see the starters for like a quarter. And then after that, they won't play. Unless, they want to, or I don't know. They might, since there's not 4 anymore, and that third one was always the dress rehearsal, they might do it like different where, they play like first quarter of the first one, and then they play a half of the second one, and then nothing in the third one. But how it's set up this year, though, with 9 days before the opener is the cut, that means I don't even know if they have preseason dates. Just trying to see here. Yeah, so the 29th. So that's, you have two whole weeks before most teams are opening. So I don't know. With that much time in between the last preseason game and the regular season opener, I kind of wouldn't be surprised if we see starters in the last preseason game. Because usually it's only a week.
Yeah.
But 2 weeks this year, I have a hard time seeing that no starters will not play for 3 whole weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm seeing it. I was just looking at it here too. The teams with the earliest final preseason game are the Steelers and the Panthers. They play on Friday the 27th. And then the first game of the season is the 12th. So that's 16 days. So yeah, I could definitely see the starters, at least in that game, playing.
Yeah, most definitely. All right. Other league news here, NFL and the NFLPA, they came together on an agreement for the 2022 salary cap ceiling. Will be set at $208.2 million. They didn't set a floor yet. And if it were to get to that 208.2, that would represent a 14% increase. So a lot more money next year if it gets there. So
wasn't it like 185 this year? Or
yeah,
what was it?
Around there.
Yeah. I mean, that'll definitely help teams that were in serious salary cap issues this past year. Because they'll get an extra what is that, 20-ish million. So
yeah. All right. Next thing on the docket here, the greatest kicker of all time, and also the leading scorer in NFL history. One, Adam Vinatieri, has finally retired after 24 seasons with the Patriots and Colts. 4-time Super Bowl champion, 3 with the Patriots, 1 with the Colts. 29 game-winning field goals, and his 3 records that he has, like I said, all-time leading scorer, 2,673 points. Most field goals made, 599, and then most consecutive field goals made with 44. So, yeah. Played a lot against your Jets, Chris.
Yeah. I mean, he went to the Colts before I really paid attention to football. So I don't have a hatred towards him because he, in my mind, he was always a Colt. So, I mean, obviously he has some of the he's the reason that Tom Brady has 7 rings, for pretty much. At least 2 or 3 of those rings, I should say.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know if I would call him the greatest of all time, though. Yes, he has all those records and all that, but he also played 24 seasons. So if you play that long, you're going to have those kind of records. I mean, like, it's kind of a different category, but when I think about like longevity versus like stats, take a guy like Frank Gore. He's played 16 seasons in the NFL, and he has 16,000 yards. So it's essentially 1,000 yards a season. I mean, it is 1,000 yards a season. So, I mean, and some of those seasons was not that great either. Like with the Jets, I don't think he got more than like 500 yards ever. I don't know. But still, I don't know who I would call the greatest of all time at the kicking position. Obviously, he's in the conversation, but I think that the knock on him would be his longevity in terms of why he wouldn't be the greatest of all time.
Yeah, I mean, you had the Andersons. I don't know why I can't remember the one. I know Gary is one of them.
Morton.
Morton. All right, cool. Yeah, so you have those two. Those are really the only 2 other, great kickers that I can think of. I know certainly our generation, Adam Vinatieri was the best.
And I have the list of like the top scorers of all time up right now, and it's crazy because the top 6 are all kickers.
Yeah.
And the most or the highest scoring quarterback in NFL history is George Blanda, who scored 2,002 career points.
Because he kicked. He kicked and played quarterback. Yeah.
Yeah, well.
But that's the thing. You get 3 points for a field goal, and you kick on average of 30 plus field goals attempted per season. If you're good, you're going to make probably 80 to 90%, so that's probably around 25 field goals per year on the minimum. So that's 75 points right there, and then you get extra points off of each touchdown. So, and Adam Vinatieri was a part of some really good offenses that scored. So with the Patriots and with the Colts, Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck with the Colts. So had plenty of opportunities to score.
This also just shows how good the Patriots offense has been too, because Steven Gostkowski is 11th all time in scoring.
Yeah.
And he's obviously a longtime Patriot as well. So he's 11th all time with 1,875 points. So that it helps to be on a team like that.
Yeah, definitely. Did win 2 of the Super Bowls outright. Super Bowl 36 against he won Super Bowls 38 and 39, I believe. If he didn't, he won the first 2. He won 36 and 38. Because I know he won the one against the Panthers. And he won the one against Super Bowl 36 and 38. Those were the 2 he won. Because he kicked it against the Rams and he kicked it against the Panthers.
Mm-hmm.
Interestingly, the Eagles Super Bowl was also a 3-point affair. But he did not kick that game-winning field goal. They just won by 3, I believe. Don't want to be wrong, but
It was 24-21.
The Eagles Super Bowl?
Yep.
Yeah.
And Deion Branch won MVP that year.
Yeah. Super Bowls 36 and 38 were the ones he kicked the game-winning field goals. But yeah, great career. Sorry. He is now eligible. He did not play in 2020 because of an injury. Was not good because of that injury in 2019. I believe he only made like 66% of his field goal or something like that, with a lot of bad misses. But yeah, he is now eligible for the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2025. So
I think he should get in there. I think he'll be first ballot, but I don't know if the fact that he was a kicker will have anything to do with it.
Yeah, I think there's only. I actually don't know. I think there might be 2. Ray Guy.
I know Morton Anderson is.
Morton Anderson. Gary hasn't gotten in yet. So.
Wait, wasn't Ray Guy a punter though?
Yes, but I included them. I included the punters in there.
I know they're people too, but still.
All right. Moving on. Your Jets, Chris, they hired Eagles run game coordinator and defensive line coach Matt Burke to a game management role. He also served as the former Dolphins defensive coordinator. How do you feel about Matt Burke helping Mr.
I mean, based on his job description, I don't like what is a game management role? Like what is the actual duties that he's going to do? Like
I would assume he's going to help because Robert Saleh is a first-time head coach. He's going to help him with timeout calls, when to call timeout, probably help with challenges as well. And also he might have some say in play selection. Because I know they did say that he won't just be defense where the majority of career has been spent. He'll support both offense and defense. So,
wait, so run game coordinator, that means he was like offense, like he was helping the running backs, or he was helping the defense on running plays?
I believe with the Eagles, he was helping defensive run defense.
Okay.
At least I think.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, like you said, Salah's a defensive guy, so I think he'll be more, like you said, I think he'll be more to help Salah kind of get used to being a head coach and stuff. And I mean, I don't really like the fact that he was a Dolphins defensive coordinator, because obviously the Dolphins defense until recently hasn't been the greatest. So I don't know how that really reflects on him, but yeah, we'll have to see.
Very experienced though. Brings 15 years of NFL experience into the Jets. So, all right. Going to his former team, the Eagles, they hired former Jags GM Dave Caldwell as a personnel executive. Very vague title. I have no idea what he's going to do. I think that he will help on the scouting side a little bit, probably with draft prep, and just some general personnel stuff. Staying in division there, the Cowboys, they hired former Giants head coach Ben McAdoo as a consultant. He was with Mike McCarthy in Green Bay as the quarterbacks coach before he went to the Giants to be the head coach. Again, another just bland title. Not sure what McAdoo is going to do there in Dallas.
Yeah, all three of those positions that we just talked about, they're all very like vague, not specific titles, really. I mean, the game management one's probably the most specific, but yeah, is Ben McAdoo only being hired because of his connection with McCarthy? Like, I know you put that there as the talking point, but yeah, I don't know. It's weird.
All right. Moving on to some player stuff here. So the Julio Jones talk has heated up a lot in the last week. So the Falcons have talked about several trade offers they have on the table for Julio. And at least one of them includes a future first-round pick. So I don't know if they meant like future as in like a 2023 first, or they mean future as in the next draft, 2022. I have no clue on that front, but again, I am sticking to my guns, and I would not trade a first round for Julio.
No. Yeah, I mean, I'm with you with that. I wouldn't trade a first rounder for him, but if I were the Falcons, I would jump on that trade. Well, I don't know. It would also depend on who it is, because if it's a team that's probably or going to be in like the final 4 teams or whatever at the end of the season, I don't know if I would go for that. I would possibly rather get like multiple mid-round picks rather than that one late first-round pick there. But that might just be me.
I know I did see something that said like they don't want to trade him in the NFC, but if that's the only offer they're getting a first round pick from, do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, again, as long as it's not in the division, though, I don't think it really matters. But obviously a team like Tampa Bay doesn't need him, so they don't have to worry about him. But, I mean, I can see the other two trading from, not so much the Saints, though, either, because they have their own cap issues, 1, and 2, they have Michael Thomas still. And then the only one I could see trying to do it in division would be the Panthers, but even that, I don't know. But other than that, I wouldn't really worry about where I'm trading him, because if he's out of the division, you're not seeing him every year. there's a chance you'll see him every year, but you're not guaranteed to see him every year. And he's only going to be in the league for another 2 or 3 years probably anyway.
Yeah. I don't think it really matters. The Falcons are not going to be good in my mind, so
yeah. I mean, their offense. I think their offense will be good no matter what, whether they have Julio or not. But the defense is still not good at all. So Falcons game's going to have a lot of fireworks.
Yeah, especially defense. Anyway. All right. Free agents, offensive tackle Jared Veldir, most notable for his almost history this year in the playoffs, where he almost started for 2 teams in one postseason. With the Colts and Packers. Unfortunately, was not able to complete that feat because of COVID restrictions, I believe, is what happened. But he is now being suspended for the first 6 games of the year. Like I said, he is a free agent, so he isn't on a team anyways. No specification on what it was for. I would assume it's PEDs because it's 6 games. I think that's usually what the first installment of a PED suspension is. So, all right. 2 things with your Jets, Chris. So, new acquisition, wide receiver Corey Davis. He suffered a minor shoulder strain this week at practice, went up for a ball, landed on his shoulder. They said, I'll be fine.
Yeah, I'm not concerned right now. My only concern with that would be that that it kind of is like a chronic thing all season that he's going to have to deal with. But if they say he's going to be fine, then we don't have to worry about it. But let's just hope he is fine.
Also with the Jets, they reworked guard Alex Lewis's contract, lowered his base salary from $5.8 million to $3 million, also cut off the 2022 year. So he will become a free agent next year. And that makes sense, right, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not that big of a fan of Alex Lewis as it is. So the fact that they were able to cut his contract down a year, and I mean, it helps that they drafted Vera Tucker to kind of speed up the process too. Because if they weren't able to get Vera Tucker, I don't think that they would have done this contract restructure with Lewis. But yeah, I think that this makes sense. It gives them a year to kind of transition Lewis out and somebody else in, whether that be Vera Tucker or another guy. I don't know. But yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, they do have Vera Tucker in the starting left guard spot right now. So Alex Lewis getting paid $3 million to be a backup. One signing that we had this week, Washington, they signed former Chiefs, Browns, and Cardinals tight end Ricky Seals-Jones. I saw on Washington's depth chart, not to get too far ahead of the draft preview, or the draft review, he is already slated as the 3rd tight end behind Logan Thomas and rookie John Bates. So it is what it is. Still remember Ricky
I kind of forgot that. I kind of forgot that he was even in the league still. But yeah, I don't really think much of this one. Like you said, they already have Logan Thomas, and they have the rookie that they just drafted. So, I mean, keeping three tight ends isn't out of the question, but he probably has to work to make the team.
You have to keep 3 tight ends, Chris. At least 3.
Hmm.
You need them for your goal line packages.
Yeah, that's true.
But
yeah, I think he'll have to. I think if he's going to make it, though, he's going to make it as that third tight end, like they have it on the depth chart.
Yeah, the other tight end there right now is Tamarick Hemingway. Couple visits here. The free agent running back Todd Gurley, most recently with the Falcons last year. He visited with the Detroit Lions. You know, you got the Brad Holmes connection as the GM in Detroit. I would very much hate that for my dynasty team because they got rid of Carry-On, and I was like, all right, let's go. DeAndre Swift's going to get all the carries now. But now Todd Gurley came on a visit, so would reunite them as Georgia backs. Obviously, they didn't play together. They were too far apart in years, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, with him though, at first I initially was kind of confused as to why Detroit was looking into him. Then I realized and I remembered that they now have a former quarterback with Jared Goff.
Yeah.
So there's that connection too there that I think that that would be a good spot for him now. Obviously, like you said, though, not for the fantasy perspective with what's his name though, DeAndre Swift, but yeah, I think that would be a solid landing spot for him.
I hope not. The Niners, they worked out former Broncos linebacker Brandon Marshall. Not really sure the Niners need him. I don't know. I always liked Brandon Marshall. I thought he was a pretty good player for the Broncos, but that I don't know if that was just me or not.
I wasn't ever really a big fan of his, but I mean, he was a part of that Denver defense from a few years ago that was one of the more dominant ones in the league. So I don't know if that was necessarily him contributing whatsoever, but he does have the experience being on a defense like that. So a guy like him, I think, would be a good piece to add as a depth piece to your defense.
Yeah, and I don't even really know like where his career went wrong because 2016 he signed a 4-year, $32 million contract with the Broncos. He started all 16 games in 2017. 2018 he started 7 of 11 games he played in. So I guess that's where it kind of started to go down. I can't remember who they got in 2018 to come in and replace him. But yeah. And then 2019 he was let go by the Broncos, signed with the Raiders, didn't make the roster. So yeah, we'll have to see. He's still 31. He'll be 32 this year. We'll have to see if the Niners bring him in or not. And then one last piece, I believe it's the last piece, just checking Twitter feed. Yeah. Last piece is an interesting piece. Former Giants running back Brandon Jacobs in the news this week. He is attempting to come back at the age of 38 years old. as a defensive end. And I don't know. I saw the pictures of what he looks like. I mean, he still looks ripped. And he said he's ready to sack and hit any quarterback out there. He said he just needs a chance.
I mean, Tebow comeback might inspire a lot more than just Brandon Jacobs there to try to come back in the league and switch positions. But I was trying to think about, though, how big is Brandon Jacobs? Because, I mean, is he big enough to play defensive end like he wants to?
I believe so. I mean, he was a big back.
Yeah. But I don't know. If he was a couple years younger, I'd say maybe. But the fact that he's 38, regardless of what kind of shape he's in, he hasn't played professional football in how long?
2013, I believe, was his last year.
Yeah. So that was the same as Tebow. So that was 8 years ago. And so, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what Jacobs has been up to since then. Obviously, Tebow's been staying in shape, playing baseball and stuff like that. So he's kind of still been in a professional sport setting. But Jacobs, I don't know.
That's the thing. He'll turn 39 in July. So not even like he's going into the year 38. He'll be 39 at the start of the league year, at the start of the season. But yeah, he did say that he feels like he's more athletic and more in shape than Tebow is at 38 than he is at 33. But yeah, when you talk about size, Wikipedia has him at 6'4", 264. So that's definitely big enough. I mean, he would probably have to add like at least 10 pounds because 264 is pretty light for a defensive end. But yeah, I mean, he's got the 6'4" frame though to do it. So who knows? We'll have to see.
Yeah, like he said, it just takes one chance though. If somebody takes a chance on him, then I'll take it a little bit more serious. But the fact that he's just coming out and saying he wants somebody to take a chance on him, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, his former team, you know, they need all the pass rush help they can get. And, you know, James Harrison played into his late 30s. Obviously, Brandon Jacobs is not the absolute monster in the weight room that James Harrison was. My Lord, could that man lift weight? I think he still does. I mean, I don't follow James Harrison right now, but I'm sure he still does in his 40s.
Oh yeah, probably.
But yeah, that's all the NFL news for this show. Let's go on to our NFC East draft recap here. So the 4 first-round picks for the NFC East, 10th overall. They were originally 6th. 10th overall, and it doesn't help that he was number 6. Devonte Smith, wide receiver out of Alabama, to the Eagles. 12th overall, linebacker Micah Parsons to the Cowboys out of Penn State. Then we go down to 19th overall, linebacker Jamin Davis from Kentucky to Washington. And then the next pick, 20th overall, wide receiver Kadarius Toney from Florida to the Giants. That was a trade down in the Justin Fields Chicago Bears trade. So, starting off with the Eagles. ESPN has them with one rookie starter. That is Devonte Smith, that wide receiver. Second round, they went back to Alabama. Center Landon Dickerson. Third round, defensive tackle Milton Williams out of Louisiana Tech. Fourth round, cornerback Zek Mcpherson out of Texas Tech. Fifth round, running back Kenneth Gainwell out of Memphis. 3 sixth-rounders, defensive tackle Marlon Tuipulotu out of USC. Edge rusher Tyron Jackson out of Coastal Carolina. And safety Jacoby Stevens out of LSU. And then 1 seventh-rounder, edge rusher Patrick Johnson out of Tulane. So since it's my team, I am going to go. I have 4 guys start, and I actually wrote a half against for another guy. So 4.5 guys here. First guy, Devonte Smith, first round pick. They needed an injection of speed and youth and just straight up playmaking ability at the wide receiver position. I was kind of surprised they didn't double down on the position throughout the draft because, they have a lot of names. They have a lot of guys that are good. They just don't have a lot of guys that are great. And that's what Devonte Smith brings, I think. He's coming in, and that will help Jalen Reagor's development in his second year, I think. I think a lot more teams are going to pay attention to Devonte Smith than they are Jalen Reagor. So I think Reagor should have a better year in year 2 than he did in his rookie season, where there weren't a lot of guys to take pressure off him on the outside there. Next guy I have their second round pick, another Alabama boy, center Landon Dickerson, coming off torn ACL in the SEC championship game in January. But I really, I loved that pick. This was the second year in a row, actually, that the Eagles have taken an Alabama player that I wanted for the Steelers. Last year it was Jalen Hurts. This year it was Landon Dickerson, both in the second round. Again, I thought Landon Dickerson would have been a great replacement for Marquise Pouncey at center in Pittsburgh. But now in Philadelphia, he's going to come in. I don't think he's going to compete necessarily for a starting job this year because they do still have Isaac Seumalo at left guard, Jason Kelce at center, and Brandon Brooks at right guard. Brooks obviously hasn't played in the regular season in 2 years because of injury. So we'll have to see if Brandon Brooks can actually make the regular season this year. If he doesn't, obviously, I think Landon Dickerson slides in at right guard and we go from there. But, yeah, he is the instant successor to Jason Kelce. Kelce's been rumored the last 2-3-ish years about retirement. So we'll have to see how many more years Jason Kelce plays. But good knowing that the Eagles have his replacement already on the roster when he does decide to hang it up. Next guy, running back Kenneth Gainwell from Memphis in the 5th round. Tough situation to come to. They already had a pretty good stable of backs, Miles Sanders, Boston Scott, Jordan Howard, who they re-signed, and also they just signed Kerryon Johnson. So we kind of talked about that before when Kerryon got claimed. But I do think Kenneth Gainwell makes the roster. He is a receiving back. I think that's his main role. But he can definitely run between the tackles as well if needed. But yeah, Memphis, anytime you draft a Memphis running back in the last 3 years, you're getting a good player. And then the last guy I have a full star for is 6th round edge rusher Tyron Jackson out of Coastal Carolina, part of that Black Swarm defense for the Chanticleers this past year. Really powerful hands, great at getting after the quarterback. Probably needs to work a little bit more in the run game, but I think he's fine at that right now. And the good thing about his situation, he doesn't have to, play a lot in year 1. He just has to focus on making the roster, I think, because with the detriment to his situation now is that they signed Ryan Kerrigan, so that's another defensive end spot that's taken away. So we'll have to see if he can make the roster first off, and then I think if he does, he'll definitely have a role as a situational pass rusher there. And then the last guy I have a half star for is one of their other 6th rounders, safety Jacoby Stevens out of LSU. I think a lot of people were higher on him going into 2020. Did not have the best season. And so he kind of dropped down a little bit. I don't know why he dropped all the way to the 6th, bottom of the 6th, really. But I do still think he's a serviceable player there. Listed as a third-string free safety behind Anthony Harris and Andrew Adams right now. I think he could probably fight for that 5th safety spot, depending on if they keep 4 or 5. I can't remember how many the Eagles usually keep at safety, but yeah, I think he'll be a good player on special teams there. And if he makes the team, that is. Half star, though, for me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not as high on the Eagles draft as you probably are, but I would probably have those same 4 guys starred that you did. Obviously, Devonte Smith in the first round. It's kind of like a star with an asterisk for me because from the very beginning of this whole process, I've not been a big Devonte Smith fan. I think he's too small. I think that he'll get bullied by the cornerbacks and safeties and whatnot in this league. And I think that'll ultimately lead to him not being successful in this league. But with that being said, I think that he's a perfect fit for the Eagles. Like you said, they're desperate for receivers. And he brings, if he can be the player he was in college, he brings such a dynamic threat to that offense. And like you also said, it kind of opens up the book a little bit for Jalen Reagor as well. Because, on the depth chart, was he the number 1 receiver or who's the number 1 receiver?
Jalen Reagor.
See, I don't know. I think that if Devonte Smith can live up to expectations, he will be the number 1 receiver by the season's end. But, yeah, I think he was a solid choice, even though I don't really like it. But for the Eagles, for the situation he came to, I think it was a good pick for him. The second pick, Landon Dickerson, I don't know. I like him if he could stay on the field. He has that injury history of his own. I know you were saying something about Brandon Brooks, but he has to stay on the field himself, which, if he does, then I think that the Eagles get a solid interior lineman no matter where he plays. And like you said, right now he's the long-term successor for Kelsey when he's gone. Which I don't know, is that 2 years down the line, you think, or 3, or
I think
how much longer do you think Kelsey has?
Yeah, this could be his last year, because I think last year he did say that he was heavily thinking about it. So I think it's either this year or next year that he's done.
Yeah, so I think that Dickerson will stick on the roster for this year as a depth piece, as like a backup to the interior positions and potential starter at right guard if Brandon Brooks can't go or whatever. So I think that was a solid pick for them because they have struggled on the offensive line in recent years. And when healthy, Dickerson is a solid interior lineman. And then the third guy you also mentioned already, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but Kenneth Gainwell. We talked about it a couple weeks ago, like you mentioned, and I think he's making the roster regardless of how he performs in the preseason, just based on the fact that he was just based on the fact that he's a draft pick from this year. And, they have a loaded room already, so I don't see him playing too much on the offense. Maybe a little bit, but I don't know. But I think he sticks around for this year, and I think he can develop into a solid complementary back to Miles Sanders or whoever else is on that roster.
And then the other guy that you had starred, Tyron Jackson from Coastal Carolina. Obviously, they had the Cinderella story kind of season down there in Carolina, but and he was right in the middle of all that on that defense. So, like you said, though, I don't know if there's any room for him on the roster right now, but especially with that with the Ryan Kerrigan signing. But I don't know if he can stick on the roster and wait it out a couple of years, like a year or two, I think he'll be a solid addition to that defense. And even if he doesn't stick on the Eagles this year, I think another team will pick him up, and I think he'll still be one of those. He'll be a solid player for somebody in this league, whether that's this year or down the line.
Yeah,
but I did like that selection for the Eagles, though.
All righty. Moving on to the Dallas Cowboys here. They also had one starter. All four teams actually only had one rookie starter. And actually, I was going to say actually all four of them was their first round pick, but it was not. One of them did not have their first round pick as a starter right now. But for the Cowboys, it is Micah Parsons, who they picked 12th overall after a trade back with the Eagles, 2 spots. Micah Parsons out of Penn State, second round corner Kelvin Joseph out of Kentucky, 3 third-rounders, defensive tackle Osa Odigizua out of UCLA, edge rusher Chauncey Golston out of Iowa, corner Nashawn Wright out of Oregon State, 2 fourth-rounders, linebacker Jabril Cox out of LSU, offensive tackle Josh Ball out of Marshall, 5th-rounder, wide receiver Simi Fahoko out of Stanford, 2 sixth-rounders, defensive tackle Quentin Bohanna out of Kentucky, and cornerback Israel Mukuamu out of South Carolina, and then 7th-rounder guard Matt Farniok out of Nebraska. Go ahead, Chris.
So I don't have as many players to talk about for the Cowboys as I did for the Eagles, but one quick point I wanted to go back to the Eagles for, because I kind of forgot to say it or ask it, but what was their final compensation for all those trades? Did they come out with extra draft picks, or did they end up losing draft picks, or what was that?
They ended up with 9 picks. So I think they ended up losing 2. So I think they started with 11. But that's because really the one trade, they traded one of their, or they had 3 7th-rounders originally. They traded 2 7ths to Washington for Washington's 2022 6th-rounder. So
yeah, so they didn't give up too much, and they still had a solid draft. The Cowboys, though, what was their did they have any other trades other than that one with the Eagles?
I have no clue. Probably.
Because, I mean, they moved back and they got whatever they got from the Eagles, but the fact that they were able to move back and they still got who a lot of people were saying was one of the best defensive players in this draft, if not the best defensive player in this draft, with Micah Parsons. I think that was a solid selection on their part because they got him at, 12, right?
Yeah.
And, and he fell to them because of the way that the board was going. And I think that was a solid move by Jerry Jones and co, because obviously Sean Lee had just retired, and even with Sean Lee, though, the linebacking core has been a little suspect over the last few years. So I think a guy like Micah Parsons will come in there and solidify that middle of the defense there. I don't know. He's not going to take over Mike duties already, is he?
No, they have him slotted in at the Sam.
Okay.
Strong side.
Yeah, I didn't think he was going to take over as the quarterback of the defense, quote unquote, already. But Wait, he is their one starter though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously, I think he'll make an immediate impact on that defense, I think. And I mean, from him being at Penn State, I'm sure you're not too happy that he went to Dallas. But yeah, he was one of my favorite picks from the first round. And then the other pick that I really liked from the Cowboys was, I forget what round you said it was, but Jabril Cox from LSU.
4th.
Yeah. So the fact that they were able to get him in the 4th round, I think, was a pretty solid pickup for them. Obviously, they've had some severe troubles on that secondary over the last couple of years. And Jabril Cox, I think, is a dynamic player coming from one of the best defensive back schools that there is, being LSU.
He's a linebacker, though.
Well, I guess he's one of those hybrid guys then.
I don't know.
But I don't know. I think that he'll also join that defense, though, and he might not be a starter right now, but I think that he'll join that defense and be one of the foundation players of that defense for the next 5-10 years or so.
Those were your 2 guys?
Yeah.
All right. I had another 4 starred for the Cowboys. Obviously, Micah Parsons, number 1. Just crazy good, man. His performance, his last game of college since he opted out in 2020, was just dominant against Memphis in the 2019 Cotton Bowl. Yeah. Probably the best defensive player of the draft, even without playing in 2020. And really, the only reason he didn't play in 2020 was the Big Ten's fault. You know, he opted out because the Big Ten said we weren't playing. Then the Big Ten came back and said we are playing. And Micah Parsons was like, all right, I already started training for the draft, not coming back. So Penn State could have severely used him, though.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, he's going to start at the strong side right now. Most likely next season he will be in the middle, taking over when Leighton Vander Esch gets booted out of Dallas. The next guy I like, their one of their 3rd rounders, defensive tackle Osa Odighizuwa out of UCLA. Another guy that had a really good week at the Senior Bowl, slated in as the backup to Neville Gallimore at the left defensive tackle spot right now. I don't really like either of their 2 starters at defensive tackle, Gallimore or Tristan Hill, both former 2nd-round picks of the Cowboys. You know, this is a 3rd rounder now. They haven't had success drafting in the defensive interior. So, but I do think Osa can really step in, be probably the 3rd defensive tackle in that rotation and make an impact early on in his career there. Next guy I have, like you, linebacker Jabril Cox out of LSU in the 4th round. He is slated in as the backup to Leighton Vander Esch in the middle right now. Not sure that's where he'll stay. I think he will. He'll be the backup there for this year. But like you, I do think he'll be a starter eventually. So possibly in 2022, he could transition over to the strong side where Parsons is now, and then move Parsons to the middle because you still have Ellerson Smith on the weak side there. So I think that's how the transition will go as they move toward 22 next season. But yeah, solid player, came over, won championships with North Dakota State, transferred to LSU for 2020. was not the kind of season they wanted, but still, he was probably one of their better players on that defense this past season.
Mm-hmm.
Last guy I have for the Cowboys, 5th rounder, wide receiver Simi Fahoko out of Stanford. He's just monstrous. 6'4", 227, big body, jump ball kind of guy. Was sort of underutilized at Stanford. I mean, we've never really known Stanford to be a high-flying passing attack because they've always had such good running backs and they can run the ball. But yeah, he's going to be a guy, and he's slated as a backup right now. He's backup to Michael Gallup, so essentially wide receiver 5, which that's the thing. The Cowboys are lauded for having that great trio of wide receivers, Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, CeeDee Lamb. But what people don't realize, I think, a lot is if one of those guys goes down, the Cowboys were not that deep at wide receiver. Before Fahoko, they had Cedric Wilson, Noah Brown, Malik Turner. I guess that would be the next guy. There's some guys I don't really know on their depth chart right now at the wide receiver position. But yeah, I think they definitely did need a wide receiver. And like I said, Fahoko can come in, especially when you get down in the red zone. I think he could be a surprise when it comes to receiving touchdowns by rookies this year. Just saying. Maybe not. Maybe he doesn't get that much time in the red zone, but he definitely has the size and abilities to do that. So,
yeah, I mean, I like him too, but I just didn't have him start on my list because of the team he went to. Obviously, like you said, he's a good depth piece, but he's buried on the depth chart right now. You said he's the 5th receiver right now. So he's basically relying on one of the top guys to go down in order for him to get more playing time. But yeah, I would have had him start had he gone to a team with a little bit less of a receiving core.
I think the Eagles didn't draft him just because they already tried that before with the Stanford receiver. That is now slated in the 3rd string in J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. So, yeah. All right. Let's move on to the Washington football team here. 1st round, linebacker Jamin Davis out of Kentucky. He is their one listed starter on the team as a rookie at weak side linebacker Will. 2nd round, offensive tackle Samuel Cosmi out of Texas. 2 third-rounders, corner Benjamin St. Juste out of Minnesota. Wide receiver De'Ami Brown out of North Carolina. 4th round, tight end John Bates out of Boise State. 5th round, safety Derek Forrest out of Cincinnati. 6th round, long snapper Cameron Cheeseman out of Michigan. And then 3 7th-rounders, edge rusher Will Bradley King out of Baylor, edge rusher Shaka Toney out of Penn State, and wide receiver Dax Milne out of BYU. So again, I have 4 guys start. I really like the NFC East players. First guy, not their 1st rounder. 2nd rounder, offensive tackle Samuel Cosmi out of Texas. This before they signed Charles Leno, I thought that Cosmi was really the lead for that left tackle spot. He's slated in the 3rd string behind Leno and Cornelius Lucas at left tackle, who is their starting right tackle right now. I think Sam Cosmi should, at least in my mind, compete for that right tackle spot against Cornelius Lucas. And I think he has more talent, so he should win. But we'll have to wait and see how that transpires there. But I think he definitely has the traits and ability to start at right tackle there. I think that's the weak spot right now on the Washington line. So next guy I have started, 3rd rounder, wide receiver De'Ami Brown out of North Carolina. Again, another team that was sort of not deep at wide receiver. I think all 4 teams this offseason, really improved their wide receiver depth in the division. De'Ami Brown adds to that. He's slated as the fourth wide receiver behind being the backup to Terry McLaurin right now. Not sure. I shouldn't say not sure. I am sure that he will not start with Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuels, and Adam Humphries there as the starting three. But he will be a solid special teams player. He does have return ability. I don't think he's slotted. No, he's not. I do think he has return ability, though. And like I said, fourth wide receiver, so he will get looks in 4 wide sets. So, yeah. Not a terrible dynasty selection this year. There's probably better players because, Terry McLaurin, he's going to be there. Curtis Samuel signed to a long-term deal. But, yeah. Next guy. We're going down to the 7th round. Edge rusher Shaka Toney out of Penn State. I'm impartial to the Penn State players because they were my first college team, and I call myself a dual fan now, being a Penn State and Georgia fan. So, but Shaka Toney, just like Odafe Owe, part of a dynamic duo at the edge rusher position for Penn State this past season. The difference is Shaka Toney had the production that Odafe Owe didn't. Odafe Owe had a lot of pressures, did not have the sack numbers. I believe he didn't even have a sack this season. But Shaka Toney did have sacks. He was a very productive player throughout his career at Penn State, and I think went to a very bad situation. There goes Chris out of the dead zone there. So we'll have to wait for Chris to come back on. But anyways, Shaka Toney, very poor situation he went to. Slated as the 3rd string defensive end right now behind Chase Young, Casey Toohill on the left side. I do think he can beat the 2 guys that are the backups at defensive end, though. It's Casey Toohill, who was a former Eagles 6th rounder last year, and also James Smith-Williams at the other side. I think really that Shaka should beat out one or even both of those guys to be the main backup at one of the defensive end spots. I don't think, Casey Toohill or James Smith-Williams should be able to beat Shaka Toney out.
Yeah.
And then the last guy I have is their last pick, wide receiver Dax Milne. I'm going back to the wide receiver train. Dax Milne listed as in the 4th string right now to the 2nd wide receiver spot. Curtis Samuel, Cam Sims, Isaiah Wright, and then Dax Milne. I don't know. Maybe it's just my BYU love from this past season. I thought Dax Milne was pretty good. I guess he's really not the fastest, but he's 6 foot 190. Not the biggest either, I guess. I don't know. I still like him. He'll probably get cut in Washington. Come to the Eagles, Dax. We would love to have you. And yeah, those are my 4 guys though for Washington: Sam Cosmi, De'Ami Brown, Shaka Toney, Dax Milne.
Yeah, I mean, I had the same 4 guys plus kind of like a half a star for their 1st round pick there with Davis. So I'll touch a little bit on Davis. So I was a little confused as to why they picked him. I thought they were solid at the linebacker position and all that, but then obviously Ryan Kerrigan is not there anymore, and so that kind of freed up a spot. And I mean, they already had a solid line there. So I was kind of surprised with their selections, but I think Davis is a solid dynamic player though, that will just add to their defense there and their front 7.
Well, don't forget that when Ron Rivera came in, they switched to a 4-3. So, an off-ball linebacker as opposed to outside pass rush linebacker.
Yeah, but I mean, I think he can still make an impact on both of those. In either kind of system. But wait, who's the starter though? Is he the starter, or who's the starter for Washington? I mean, with the rookies.
Yeah, he's the starter.
Okay. So yeah, I think that he'll have a solid impact on that defense. I mean, it helps that you have, like I said, the kind of defense that they have with all those guys up front. So whether he is lining up next to them or going back in coverage, I think he'll be just fine. And then, so that was my half a star. My first star was the same one as you with Sam Cosmi. He took a little bit of a hit though after they had went and signed Leno, like you said. But I do think he has a shot at starting at right tackle, like you said. But if nothing else, I think he does end up as the backup to both positions. I think that's his floor for this year, is to end up as the backup to both tackle positions, and slide in as the starter if one of them gets hurt or whatever else. And I think that he will be a solid left tackle, though. I think his future is at the left tackle position. Maybe not short-term future, but long-term, I think he will be a left tackle. And I think he'll be solid for their line. Next guy, like you too, De'Ami Brown. We both know that was Mark's guy coming out. He loved that guy. Being he's the big red zone threat kind of guy that he is. I don't know. I think by the end of the season, we could see him in the starting lineup as the wide receiver 3.
Yeah, 6'1".
Yeah, but I've never been a big Adam Humphries fan. So I could see him easily taking his spot in the starting lineup. And well, you said he was the 5th receiver though?
4th.
Oh, he is the 4th. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, then that's the only person he really has to go ahead of, which I think he can easily do this year. And I'm thinking about future too. If Washington doesn't improve and like win the division the way you're supposed to, not with a 7-9 record or whatever it was, but if they can actually win the division handily and with a winning record, then I think Terry McLaurin will stay. Otherwise, when his contract up in the next couple of years, whenever that is, I don't know. I don't see him staying too long. So I think that's another way that De'Ami Brown down the line can get in the starting lineup. But I think he'll be a dynamic receiver for the Washington football team. And then the third guy I had was the same as you also, Shaka Toney. He all the same things you said. I don't know if he has the spot right now because of their because of how good their line actually is, but I still think he makes the roster as a role player / backup. And down the line, obviously they're not going to be able to keep all those guys on the line. Mm-hmm. So I think down the line, one of them is going to leave in free agency and he'll slide in as the starter there. And I think he'll have an easy transition. I think this is actually the best thing for him, that he sits behind these guys for a few years and then takes over in like 2 or 3 years when one of them leaves. But yeah, I think he can be a solid role player for the first year or 2 of his career. And then my last guy is a guy you also talked about, And I, too, don't think he's going to make the roster in Washington. But Dax Milne out of BYU, I would love to see him come to New York and reunite with his college quarterback there with Zach Wilson. Whether that be on the practice squad for right now or as like the wide receiver 6 or whatever. I think he's a solid player too there for them. Or not for them, but he was a solid player for BYU. And he was a big reason why Zach Wilson had such an incredible season this past year. So, again, that wide receiving core in Washington is just way too stacked for a guy like him to make it. So he needs to go to a team
that needs receivers like Philly or like the Jets or like another team like that. And I think if he does that, he'll have a shot at being a contributor this year and even beyond. But I don't see him staying on Washington, but that's a name I'm going to be monitoring throughout the preseason and throughout the regular season.
All right. Let's go to the last team here, the New York Football Giants. Like I said, all 4 teams have one rookie starter. The Giants are the only one that it's not their first-round pick. Kadarius Toney is not the starter. It is their second-rounder, Azeez Ojulari. He is slated in as the strong side outside linebacker right now in their base 3-4. So, first round, though, 20th overall wide receiver Kadarius Toney out of Florida. Like I said, traded back with the Bears in the Justin Fields trade. Second rounder, edge rusher Azeez Ojulari out of Georgia. Third round, corner Aaron Robinson out of Central Florida. Fourth round, edge rusher Ellerson Smith out of Northern Iowa. And 2 sixth-rounders, running back Gary Brightwell out of Arizona. And Rodarius Williams out of Oklahoma State. Chris, go ahead, New York.
Yeah, so I wasn't that high on the Giants draft. I didn't really like their first-round selection of Kadarius Toney. I loved Kadarius Toney coming out, but I didn't like the situation he went to. I would have loved to see him go to a team like Kansas City or Green Bay at the end of the first round that is in need of a receiver. Not saying the Giants aren't, but I don't know. I don't think that his style of play really fits them that well. And especially with the fact that they also now signed Kenny Galladay, I think that they have a crowded receiver room, so I don't really see him getting too much playing time this year unless one of them goes down. But that's obviously not a guarantee or whatever. But, I liked him, but I would have liked him more if he went to a different team, similar to the guy we were talking about before with Dallas. But the guy I really did like, though, like one of my favorite players coming out of the draft, partially because he was tied to the Jets a lot in the second round, or in the late first, sometimes early second round, was the Giants' second round pick there with Azeez Ojulari. Obviously, you got to watch him there in Georgia for the last couple of years, so you know more about him than I do. But he's a speedy guy that can rush the passer and get around the defensive ends and stuff, and be the agile, finesse type pass rusher rather than the bull rushing guy, which, I mean, I personally prefer the bull rush, but if there's a guy like that that can do what he does, I'm fine with that too. And you were saying before how the Giants really need pass rushers when we were talking about the Brandon Jacobs thing. Well, they got themselves one of the better ones in this draft. And I was personally surprised to see him fall all the way to the Giants there in the second round. Because I think majority of the mock drafts I did, 90% of the ones I did, he was going in the late first round and like not even making it to the second round. So I was kind of surprised to see him there on day 2. And a part of me wanted the Jets to take him with their second round pick, but then they went and took Elijah Moore, who I'm also okay with. But Azeez Ojulari, though, I think will be a solid player on that defense. And he is their only starter right now on that team. But other than that, though, other than those first two guys, I didn't like their draft really.
Yeah, not even early second. He went all the way down in 50th overall. So yeah, mid-second there. But yeah, I liked the Giants the least. I had the least amount of guys starred. 3 for me. I guess it could technically be 2.5. So not too high on the third guy that I have, but first guy, Kadarius Toney, first round pick. Loved him coming out of Florida. Dynamic slot receiver. Catches everything. But like you, the fit just puzzled me because I know I said this on draft night. They already had a slot receiver in Sterling Shepard. Obviously, Sterling Shepard has had injury issues over his career, but he stayed healthy all year last year. So I had an issue with that. He's slated as the 4th wide receiver right now. The thing, though, is that I could see him moving to the 3rd spot just because, we have to wait and see if Darius Slayton can replicate his rookie season. No one really saw Darius Slayton coming as a 5th-round pick out of Auburn last year. So I have to see if Darius Slayton can continue that upward trajectory. But if he can't, then I think Kadarius Toney slides in. It'll be weird probably for him playing on the outside, but that's the only spot I can see him playing because I don't think Sterling Shepard can really play outside. So, but yeah, I did like Kadarius Toney though. Second one was Azeez Ojulari as well. Great production at Georgia. Just like Micah Parsons, even though Azeez played in 2020, Azeez's last game, what was it? I don't even know. Was that the Cotton Bowl too?
Might have been.
I don't remember if it was the Cotton or the Peach Bowl that Georgia. Oh yeah, it was the Peach, right? Because they played in AT&T or not AT&T, Mercedes-Benz Stadium, I believe. So yeah, I think it was the Peach Bowl that Georgia played in this year. But yeah, 3 sacks in that game led them to the win. Obviously, my guy Adam Podlesny kicked the game winner there. But yeah, Giants severely needed edge rush. They had Lorenzo Carter at the other outside linebacker spot. Not a lot of depth there. Do have Shane Simonez, who they drafted before. Also Ryan Anderson, former Washington player. But yeah, really like Azeez there. Like you said, a surprise he fell all the way in the second round. The only other guy I had starred, like I said, probably should only be a half star, is their 4th rounder, Ellerson Smith, the edge rusher out of Northern Iowa. Another Senior Bowl guy. Didn't have the greatest week in the Senior Bowl, but I do still think he has pretty good pass rush ability. I don't recall what his stats were. I know we read his stats around the Senior Bowl. I think it was crazy stats, right? It was like 30 sacks or something like that.
Yeah.
Career at Northern Iowa. But yeah, just massive frame, 6'7", 245, playing outside linebacker there in the Giants 3-4. Might not make the team. I think he will, though, as a situational edge rusher. Slated in the fourth string behind Azeez Ojulari, Ifedio Denigbo, and Ryan Anderson. I don't really know who Trent Harris is, the third stringer at the other spot. So I could see Ellerson Smith go in third string at the other outside linebacker spot. But I do think it'll be a hard time. We'll have a hard time making the roster. But I do like him, though. Half to a full star for me for Ellerson. So. Yeah, the issues I had a couple issues with some of the drafts here, though. For the Eagles, it was that they didn't double down on receivers and that they didn't take a linebacker. The Eagles are like the Packers, except at the linebacker position. The Eagles just do not draft linebackers. They did last year. They drafted what's his face out of Colorado, Davion Taylor. They drafted him, and they drafted Sean Bradley last year as well in the 5th round. I didn't really like Davion Taylor too much coming out last year, so I was not that high on him as a 3rd round pick. But yeah, he did sign Eric Wilson. I thought that was fantastic. So he's easily the Mike, and we'll have to see what the scraps come up for with the other 2 linebacker spots there. I don't think I had a real big issue. I don't think the Cowboys really missed on any positions. They definitely kind of hit on the secondary thing where they drafted 3 corners. So Washington, how do they not draft a quarterback? They didn't draft anyone. Their quarterbacks this season: Ryan Fitzpatrick, Taylor Heineke, Kyle Allen, Steven Montez. So who knows? I think that leaves the possibility Washington is still open to, all right, Deshaun Watson, let's go. Aaron Rodgers, come on. I think Washington is clearly still in that conversation for those 2 guys.
I don't know, though. If I were Rodgers, I think I'd rather stay in Green Bay if I was going to either go to Washington or stay in Green Bay.
Oh, I know that. I'm just saying, looking at their situation, they're one of the clear-cut teams that still needs a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get me wrong. I love the beard. I love Ryan Fitzpatrick and Fitzmagic and all that he does. But he is not an elite quarterback.
Nope. He is for like 4 games a season, but yeah.
Yeah. And he's not their future, obviously. At 38, I don't even know how old he is now.
And I think that Heineke clearly isn't either, because they wouldn't have signed Fitzpatrick and pretty much made him the starter if they thought that Heineke was the future.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm kind of surprised that they kind of threw away Heineke already, because he had a great game in the playoffs last year. So,
well, they didn't throw him away. I mean, it's him against Kyle Allen as the backup this year, which I think is really one of the more low-key, intriguing camp battles, the Washington backup quarterback position.
Mm-hmm.
So, and as far as the Giants, I can't think of anything that they really missed that they needed. Yeah, they got 2 corners, 2 edge rushers, a running back, and a wide receiver. So I would have said offensive line, but they've already drafted a lot of offensive linemen the last 2 years. So I really don't think they needed to draft more offensive linemen. They probably could have. Actually, no. Yeah, never mind. 2 corners already. Never mind.
I mean, they could have if they didn't make the trade. They
Huh?
could have gotten Slater at 11, but they
Yeah,
traded back.
like I said, I mean, they didn't. What's crazy though is looking at their depth chart right now. Andrew Thomas is the backup left tackle to Nate Solder. Very surprised about that. That he's not the starting right tackle, considering he struggled on the left side and Solder opted out last year. Matt Peart is their right tackle right now on the depth chart. So, yeah. All right. So, since this is my number 1 team's division, I will go first in my rankings. Giants, number 4. Again, the least amount of starred players. Was not a fan of the situation with Kadarius Toney. That's what really put them in number 4. Number 3 is the Dallas Cowboys. Loved Micah Parsons. Really liked the Fahoko selection. Adigizua and Cox were the other 2 stars I had. Going to be backups this year. But I still think them and Washington and the Eagles were all kind of close. They were all really close there. But I'm gonna put Dallas at 3, also because they had some questionable picks, especially once they got to day 3. Some of the guys that they drafted, I was like, who? For example, Nashawn Wright out of Oregon State in the 3rd round. Had no clue who that was. Josh Ball out of Marshall in the 4th, the offensive tackle there. And then, 2 of their other day 3 guys, Quentin Bohanna, defensive tackle out of Kentucky, and guard Matt Farniok out of Nebraska. I was like, who are these? I have no idea who these guys are. So that was another reason why Dallas is 3. 2, Washington. Was not a fan of Jamin Davis. Too much of a fan. I shouldn't say I'm not a fan. Great coverage ability. Not sold on him being a good run stopper. Which they have John Bostic, who is really a 2-down player there. But yeah, that's what really put them at number 2 instead of 1 was I did not start Jamin Davis at 1, like the Cosme pick, Brown in 3rd round. And then there are 2 of their 3 7th rounders, Toney and Milne there. But again, Milne probably won't make the roster. Toney's got to fight to make the roster, going to have a hard time there. So really, I see 3 starters possibly out of this draft for Washington. Number 1, this is not being a homer, people. It is the Philadelphia Eagles. I thought they hit a home run with the Devonte Smith pick, as well as the Landon Dickerson. And those 2 alone, I think, make the draft class really good. Getting a solid depth piece in Tyron Jackson in the 6th round and Kenneth Gainwell in the 5th round, a great role player at the running back position, I thought was really good. And then even though I didn't touch on these guys, Zek Mcpherson out of Texas Tech, I know a lot of people with the Eagles really like Zek Mcpherson and believe he can be a starter, or a guy that is in sub packages, nickel and dime. And then also Marlon Tuipulotu in the 6th round, USC. We talked about J2 Fele last show. Tuipulotu, also a very good defensive tackle out of USC that can help in the depth in the pass rush there.
Yeah, so our rankings are very similar, if not the same. But in my rankings, I definitely rank them based on, I think, the potential of their draft class, not necessarily the players that I love the best. Because if that were the case, I would put the Giants number one, because I think Azeez Ojulari is the best, if not one of the best draft picks in this division. So I think if that were the case, but because I'm going based on potential of the entire draft class, I would put the Giants at number 4, because Ojulari is the only pick that I love of theirs.
Mm-hmm.
And I like Tony, like you said, but again, like we keep saying, it's just not a good fit for them right now. But other than that, I didn't really like their draft. 3 also for me is Dallas, because outside of the selection of Micah Parsons, similar situation to the Giants with Ojulari. I love that pick, and I think the only reason that the Cowboys are ahead of the Giants is because Parsons was the higher rated pick. He's essentially the best defensive player in the draft. So I think that's my main reason for why I put Dallas 3. And also I think that they filled out their roster a little bit better than New York did. And then my number 2, just like you, is Washington. I think they had a great overall draft. I did like the Davis pick, but again, I'm not too sure on it, even though he is their only listed starter. But I love the De'Ami Brown pick. I love the Jabril, not the Jabril Cox.
Shaka.
Yes, Shaka Tony. I love that pick too. But again, we got to see if Tony makes the roster or not. But I think he has a solid chance at it. But yeah, I don't know how many future starters will come out of this draft for Washington. I think there's a couple that'll come out for other teams, like we were saying before with Milne and even Tony if he doesn't make the roster. I think that they'll latch onto another team and become something in this league. But yeah. And then number 1 for me is your Eagles. So that can also prove that it's not a homer thing because I'm not an Eagles fan. But again, like I said at the beginning of my rankings, if it was based on my favorite players or whatever, I think the Eagles might be at the bottom because I'm not high on Devonte Smith or Landon Dickerson for different reasons, obviously, because of like I'm skeptical and concerned about Devonte Smith's size, and I'm worried about Dickerson's injury history and ability to stay healthy and stay on the field. So, but if those two can actually prove me wrong, then both of those are home run hits for the Eagles. And even the Kenneth Gainwell pick, obviously there's a crowded running back room right now, but I think because he's such a specialty back with his receiving ability, I think that's why he's going to latch on this team, and he will be in some big plays this year, I think. So I think overall immediate impact and future impact, I think the Eagles are number 1 in both of those categories. And yeah, I think that based on this draft class, the Eagles have the brightest future of the 4 teams.
Yeah, Memphis running backs always seem to make a difference some way or another too. So,
Mm-hmm.
All right, those are our selections and our rankings for the NFC East. We'll have those up on social media for your comments coming up after the show. Next week, summer week 3. Nothing going on that we have planned yet. We'll see what the news brings. We might bring back Would You Rather. I don't know. We'll have to see. We do have, the Julio Jones situation rolling still.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, I should have put it on here. Next Football Friday will be a fun one. it is my birthday. So we'll have some Bud Lights on the show. I believe as well we should be having some new team members, some new crew members. I like to call us the FAA crew. So we should have some new crew members coming on either Monday or Friday. Should be their first show. A lot of stuff in the works right now. I'm excited to grow and get some more people on here, get some new ideas. And we should have some intriguing guests as well as we go throughout the summer here. But yeah, that is the show for today. As always, don't forget to follow us on all our social media here on YouTube, as well as our Facebook page at FAA Podcast on Twitter and Instagram. And then check out our website, faapodcast.com. Have some cool merch. I got to get some new designs out. That is on me. We will have, we are going to, I can say this definitively. I have not put it in the system yet, but I can guarantee we will have a sale for my birthday. And I don't have the code yet, but we will be posting that on all our social media. Great chance to get merch. It's going to be 20% off. Actually, no, it's not going to be 20% off. It's going to be 25% off because that is how old I'm turning. So yeah, quarter off of the price. What's better than that? Great chance to get some.
Yep. Great chance to get some of those more expensive things.
Yeah, definitely. Stock up on the gear. And as always, thank you, Chris. And we will see you on Memorial Day, maybe. I don't know. I know I'll be here. I think one of our other new guys is coming on. Chris may or may not be here.
I gotta figure out what my plans are. If I don't have anything going on, I'll definitely be here.
All righty. Well, we will see y'all on Monday.